Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome and thanks for joining me. In today's video, you're going to learn to play a little bit like this. Right? So what exactly is that? That type of soloing follows the chords, and it follows a very specific path through the chords, and there's actually a very specific way that I'm putting some things together. So what I'm going to show you today is where the notes come from. Okay, so how I'm following these chords and how I'm choosing certain notes out of the chords very specifically. I know it might not seem that way, but I'm actually being very deliberate about everything that I'm doing. And these will be following chord shapes that you already know. I'm not going to go into a bunch of weird new chord shapes. This should be stuff that you probably already know. If you've been through even the first 3 lessons of Blues Guitar Unleashed, you're going to know these chords already. Okay. So the next thing is I'm going to show you how to embellish a couple of spots. That just makes it sound a lot more bluesy, and it makes a really, really, really big difference with minimal extra effort. And then the third thing I'm going to show you is how I incorporate that style of playing into the blues sounds that you might already be using. And that's, I think, where a lot of times this information kind of falls apart because people don't know how to merge it with what they're already doing. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's jump into the chord shapes themselves. Now the first, I'll say most basic chord is a good old, bar chord, 7th chord, right? We see these all the time. These are pretty normal, but we're gonna do like we often do. We're gonna get rid of the low end, okay? There's totally no reason that I'm ever gonna use the 6th string. I don't solo in the basement. I don't encourage you to solo in the basement. There's really no reason that we need to do a lot of that. I'm gonna add a little overdrive there. Okay, so I don't really need that note. I might sometimes use this E down here, but it's going to be rare. But I'll go ahead and keep it as an option. We have the G, right? Which is again already part of the chord. That's the 5th string on the 5th fret on the 4th string. I have a C sharp here at the 6th fret of the 3rd string. I have an E here at the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and of course I have the A at the top. Okay, so I'm literally gonna play those notes, okay? E, G, C sharp, E, A. Now, the chord itself, this is an A7 chord, right? An A7 chord is A, C sharp, E, and G. And as you can see, I already have a G, a C sharp, an E, and an A. So I have all of those notes here. What I want to do though is I want to add in the duplicates. Okay, oh, and there's an E down here. So I have the G, but I'm kind of skipping the A, so I'm going to add that in. So I have G and A, and I have my C sharp, and I have my E, and then I have that A up there, but that skips the G. So I'm going to add that G. Okay, so I have G, A, C sharp, E, G, A. So I added 2 notes to my chord. So E, G, A, C sharp, E, G, A. Right, that I just added to my chord. Now, a good way to practice that is to simply play over an A7 chord with just those notes. Okay, so just mess with that. Don't put in changes, right? Don't put in a blues into your looper. Just put the one chord. Something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got just that chord. skipped one, oh well, it's no big deal. Add it in the next time. And just play over that for a while until it becomes comfortable. Don't beat yourself up if you miss one, just grab it the next time. It's no big deal, okay? There's only a handful of notes here. It's not gonna take that long, okay? Now, the next chord would be, I'll say, a root on the 5th string, the D7, right? And I have my root, my D, and I have the 5th of the chord, the A. The flatted 7th of the chord is the C. The 3rd of the chord is the F sharp, and the 5th, the A. So I have 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret. And again, I'm probably not gonna play that lowest note. It might come up once in a while, but probably not so much, okay? So root, 5th, flat 7th, 3rd, 5th, D, A, C, F sharp, A. So I've got all the notes there, but the likelihood is, but I've skipped some as before. So I go from root to 5th. So let's add in the 3rd, right? It's an octave apart. If the octave thing is easier to see. So I've got an F sharp there at the 4th fret of the 4th string. My A, my C, I already had that. I'm gonna add another D at the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Still got my F sharp, my A. I can reach another 7th, that C up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that too. So I've added 3 notes. The F sharp down here, and you can keep the D if you want. So D, F sharp, A, C, D, F sharp, A, C. Don't hit that one. And again, probably an easy way to do this. Take your looper, play a little D7. And then play the notes of the chord. Again, we only added a couple. So make sure you see the chord. And then we're adding a couple more, some duplicates. Okay, easy enough, right? Now, here's the cool part. The E7, our 5 chord, is exactly the same. Just moves up 2 frets. Okay, so I'm not really going to take a lot of time there because obviously that's pretty straightforward. And again, you could just play an E7 and you could practice on that E if you want to, but there's nothing that's going to be any different. If the trick that I like to use is I like to say close your eyes, right? So if I play the D, right, and I'm playing it with my eyes closed, well then if it changes to E, I really don't care because my fingering doesn't change. Doesn't matter where I put it. Right, so get used to that. I can do the same thing with the A. Right, I can put it anywhere, and you should be very, very comfortable doing that. Okay, so if I play this over the entire 12-bar blues, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play, when it's the A7 chord, I'm going to play those notes from the A7 chord. When it's the D7 chord, I'm going to play those notes from the D7 chord. I'm not stepping outside, not doing anything different. I'm just going to play exactly those notes. All right, it'll sound something like this. A first. D. A again. E. D. A. Let that E go by. A again. D. A again. E again. D. A again. And E again. Etc., etc. And I can keep doing that all day long, okay? So that's probably the first thing that you kind of get the hang of. But I'm sure that when you're listening to me play that, you think to yourself, Griff, that doesn't sound very cool. It certainly doesn't sound like what you just played a minute ago. You are correct. But I gotta get you gotta get comfortable with the basic pattern and the basic shape in the group of notes, okay? This is called an arpeggio. Anytime you play the notes of a chord one at a time, we call that an arpeggio. And fundamentally, that is what you're doing right now. Okay, but obviously arpeggios are it's a different way to look at notes, right? We have the minor pentatonic scale, we have the major pentatonic scale, the blues scales, we have all these different scales, but arpeggios have a different set of notes than those others. So it's another thing that we can add. And it's a really cool thing that we can add because, as you'll see, it mixes in very well with your regular stuff. Now, if you were listening to me play just a second ago and thought that sounds really boxy and kind of really bland, you are correct. And I'm going to show you how to cure that, okay? Remember when we were talking and I said, like for our A7, I got rid of the low note. I don't like that one. I'll keep this one. This is the fifth of the chord. There's the flatted seventh, the root, the third, fifth, flat seventh, root. Theoretically, another third if I want to reach up here, but I'm not gonna. Flat seventh, fifth, third, root, flat seventh, fifth. You kind of need to know that. Okay, so it's one thing to know that it's an E, and it's a G, and it's an A, and it's a C sharp, and it's an E, but honestly, it sort of doesn't matter because as I move it up, it'll change. But what you do need to know is that I have root, seventh, fifth, third, root, seventh, fifth. Root, flat seventh, fifth, third, root, flat seventh, fifth. Why do you need to know that? Because the third, in particular, the third is what makes it sound very majory, but if I approach the third from the half step below it, I get that sort of bluesy third. And you'll notice that if I'm going up, it's easy. But when I come down, I don't go to the third to the flat third. I always go flat third to third. Okay, and now it's going to sound a lot more bluesy. Right? That's a lot more bluesy sounding right away. Okay? Now over the other shape, right? I have root third, which means I can flat third to third that one. Fifth, flat seven, root third, so I can flat third there. Fifth, seventh. So seventh, fifth, third, root, flat seven, fifth, flat third. root. If you're so inclined, I don't usually use it. There's a lot of things you can do here, and it's all bluesifying the third, as I like to call it. Okay, so again, if I'm back on my A, here's my fourth, the D. And I use that again when I get to the E, back to the D, and then the root. And I have, with that flatted third, I have a much more bluesy sound right away. There's one other little trick you can use if you're so inclined, if you feel comfortable doing it. Between the root and the flatted seventh, they're a whole step apart, and you can use that passing tone. It's kind of a cool sound too. So I went and did that. Here's my bluesified. So you can hear it gets a lot cooler. A lot cooler. Now, again, I want to be really, really clear that if you want to practice this, the easiest way to practice it is one chord at a time. Okay, so just put like an A7 in your looper, practice playing the shape, practice adding the flat three. That thing where I go from the root to the flat seven, I only do that when I'm descending. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't worry about it. It's okay. It was just a little added thing I thought I'd throw in there. Okay, so like anything, if we do too much of this, it's going to be a problem. Okay, you can, with any approach, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, it gets tedious, and this is no different. So what I want to really explain is how you want to incorporate this into your, I'll say, regular playing. And by regular playing, I mean, right, good old blues scale, minor blues scale. If I'm playing over a blues in A, how am I going to incorporate this? Well, remember, at any time, I can abandon this approach and go back to my minor blues scale. Similarly, at any time, I can abandon my blues scale and go to this. Now that's great, okay? And it's great that you've got the world at your fingertips. But to be perfectly honest, that's kind of almost harder to deal with than if I give you a rule and say, this is when you want to do it. So I'm going to tell you what I like to do. It's my opinion, and what I like the sound of is I will use this over the 1 and the 4 chord. When that 5 chord rolls around, the changes start getting faster. It starts getting more difficult to follow the chords. I also find that I like the sound of the minor pentatonic scale over those last 4 bars better than I like the sound of following the chords. So that's where I switch over. Okay, so if I was playing, right, if I've got my chords going, here's my D, back to A, now here's the E. So I just go back to that minor blues scale. And then when it comes back to the A, here's the D. Here's the E. So I'm back to minor pentatonic scale. And then of course, I would again switch back to using chord-based soloing over the A and the D. That's just my approach. Now sometimes when it goes to the 5, I'll switch to the minor pentatonic, only for a couple of bars. When it comes back to the 1, I'll go back and grab that. And then I'll switch back to the minor pentatonic again over that 5 chord. In general, I just prefer the sound of the minor pentatonic scale over the 5 chord. That's just me. You may like it that way, you may not. Either way is okay. Regardless, it's actually a very easy approach to soloing. If you think about it, you have four notes that appear at different octaves. Root, flat 7, 5th, 3rd. Root, flat 7, 5th, 3rd. Same thing here. Root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7. And you only really need to know the top part. Okay, so you can get by with like the top 3 strings, maybe 4, you're good, right? You don't have to actually even use that many. The key, again, I think, is to use this, I'll say sparingly. It can be a fairly substantial portion of what you play, but go back to the minor blues scale fairly regularly. And that's what's going to make it really, really stick, the contrast between the two. Okay, so I hope this kind of makes some sense. I hope you dig it. This is a sound I really, really like. It's something that I use a lot. Something that I think you've definitely heard me play it before. If you like that sound, I do have a course called Chord by Chord Blues Soloing that I'll try and remember to leave a link near this video for you because it's a neat way to approach soloing over blues. And again, when you combine it with that minor pentatonic scale, it's extremely effective. Even if maybe you only do it 1 chord once in a while, it's an extremely effective thing to throw in the middle of a solo, and it'll really like people be like, oh, that's really cool. Like it's a really nice but fairly drastic change of approach. All right, so as always, hope you dig the video. My name is Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.